Witchfire is a gothic fantasy RPG roguelike FPS, if I can cram enough different genres into one title, and it just launched on Steam in early access after being an Epic Game Store exclusive for about a year, and it's gone through some massive changes since I played it last. The devs on this game are actually using early access as a way to take in that player feedback and make meaningful changes, and it is really showing. Let's check it out. So, since Witchfire has been an Epic Game Store exclusive until now, it's probably flown under the radar for a lot of gamers. It's kind of like Dark Souls, but with guns. You play as a prayer, basically a priest sent to eradicate a demonic presence created by the game's central villain, the Witch. As you play, you find resources like gold and herbs that let you research weapon unlocks and craft healing items. You also get access to a variety of passive items that boost your offense and defense capabilities. You can get unique abilities that cause enemies to explode when you kill them. There's active spell items that let you cast magic, like an Iron Cross that blinds enemies or one that shoots freezing blasts to immobilize enemies. There's a lot of different cool combinations in how you can build out your character. And I played a ton of Witchfire when it first launched on the Epic Games Store, and at that time it was an exceptionally good looking but also quite shallow experience with just a couple of levels and a handful of weapons to play with. But even then, I knew the devs were onto something special, because despite the limited amount of content, I kept jumping back into the game for more. And I even kept up with the near daily patches for a while, but I eventually moved on to other games. But with the latest move to Steam, it's pulled me back in to see what's changed, and honestly, I'm impressed. There's been several major updates that added a ton of new content and basically rebalanced the game from the ground up. It's still certainly an FPS roguelike, but the emphasis is now more on the RPG mechanics than the randomness of each run. They've added several new items that expand your arsenal of weapons and magical items, so there's a huge number of builds to create now compared to when it first launched. They've also seemingly made items and enemies spawned with more predetermined locations or more logic from run to run, and I'm noticing the pacing and consistency of the game has improved a lot. That said, they did up the difficulty quite a bit. When I first played, I was just cruising through the first area and its boss kind of like it was nothing. But so far, I haven't even reached the first boss. After playing several hours to unlock new gear and upgrades, I did notice things were getting easier, but there's still so many new mechanics and synergies to discover. It is kind of like rediscovering all the mechanics all over again, which is fantastic. And the game is still early access with quite a few more expansions on the roadmap as it works its way toward a 1.0 release, hopefully by the end of next year. Now in the current build, there's a handful of levels to play. The starting level is a pretty low level area that offers the least challenge and the least rewards, but it's also a great area to farm up your Witchfire, the game's primary currency for leveling up your character. Witchfire are basically the souls from a Dark Souls game. You can earn them from random loot drops and clearing out enemy encounters. Each level has named areas with groups of enemies to clear out. Once you clear an area, an arcane manifestation spawns that gives you access to the arcane abilities. These are basic enhancements like more health elixirs, boosted damage against elite enemies, and so on and so forth. They are still randomized from run to run, like in true roguelike fashion, but you can make each tier a specific type of arcane, like weapon or spell upgrades. And clearing out the enemies on the map will unlock all the arcane tiers, and it's pretty much essential for surviving the boss encounter at the end of the level. One of the upgrades that I really appreciated this time around was how much easier it was to stay topped off with ammo and healing elixirs. When the game first launched, I had plenty of runs where I just run out of these items and more or less just have to bail from the run because you can't go on without those things. And while I still ran out of ammo on a few runs this time around, the game was so much more generous with loot and chests from fallen enemies. It just seems like the devs really understood the core problems and the pacing of the game and have ironed out pretty much most of it. I also really enjoy the new companion system. Using the Vestal Flame and collecting prayer echoes lets you unlock a handful of named companions that each offer a unique passive ability that you get at all times, and an active ability that triggers when you spawn them. You can spawn your companion once per run in a pinch basically, but they can really help tip the scales. Without them, Witchfire can feel really challenging, especially when the enemies start grouping up on you. Companions can really let you shape the experience or correct for a mistake that you might have made. Now, I'm also really enjoying the new weapons that have been added. The Ricochet automatic rifle in particular just opens up the gameplay in really cool ways. The earlier weapons Witchfire offered mostly just had status effects like inflicting burning if you shot an enemy enough, but the Ricochet lets you tag 3 enemies and shooting any of them imparts equal damage to the other 2. You can use it really strategically to snipe distant enemies by tagging one enemy that's close to you, and then you can deal massive damage to the 2 that are further away where you otherwise couldn't. There's also some other snazzy additions like the Genesis system that lets you unlock those customizable arcane tiers and hidden paths on levels. I also really like the witch vaults that are basically non-RNG time trials with unique rewards that you can grind to quickly level up. Now, as much as I like Witchfire, I don't know if I can universally recommend it in its current state to everyone. The game is still at least a year away from being finished, and it might be worth waiting for the remaining content before diving in. Currently, it feels like you could get a solid 10 to 15 hours out of it, but once you hit the wall where the current content runs out, there isn't really an incentive to continue playing beyond there. I like how the game keeps a lot of its upgrades a mystery, and you sort of have to discover new stuff by stumbling across it or through trial and error, which makes it a more compelling experience when you're first starting out. But without an end game or new riddles to figure out via gameplay, the game can feel a little too live, die, repeat, which starts to get stale. Once they start adding in the end game content in the witches area specifically, I think that will hopefully all change for the better. The devs have also made it clear that there's a very small chance that they could work in co-op at some point, but so far it seems pretty unlikely. Witchfire is a great solo experience, but I can't help feel how much more exciting the game could be with a party of players trying to synergize and work together. Co-op is of course way more challenging to design and there's many more technical issues to deal with, but it is something that I feel could be a major boost to the game's appeal. Maybe a sequel down the road could look more at integrating co-op mechanics. Overall, I'm really impressed with the progress that Witchfire has made since I first played it. It seems like the devs are doing a fantastic job of listening to feedback and realizing the problems and fixing them with the game. It seems like it can only get better from here on. I am enjoying it in its current state, and I'd be curious to hear if any of you have started checking it out since it's ended up on Steam. Let me know what you think about Witchfire in the comments, and if you enjoyed this video, don't forget to drop me a like, subscribe for more content like it, and beat that YouTube algorithm with me by dinging that notification bell. Up next, check out this other early access game that just launched on Steam, The Forever Winter. It is a gorgeous, very interesting world that is also quite buggy, but certainly worth checking out. As always guys, thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time. This is Level Cap, signing off.